In 1929, researchers working in Istanbul's Topkapi Palace found a fragment of a map that had been missing from history for centuries. It was not a complete world map. Only about 1/3 survived. But that surviving piece was enough to cause international excitement, because it appeared to show parts of the Atlantic world as Europeans understood it in the early 16th century. The map had been compiled in 1513 by Piri Reis, an Ottoman admiral, navigator, and cartographer. At first glance, it looked like a beautiful but damaged nautical chart. But the closer scholars looked, the more interesting it became. It contained South America, parts of the Caribbean, West Africa, and detailed written notes. Most importantly, it seemed to preserve information from a now-lost map connected to Christopher Columbus. That single detail turned the Piri Reis map from an old artifact into one of the most discussed maps in world history. To understand why the map matters, it helps to place it in time. Piri Reis compiled it in 1513, only 2 decades after Columbus's first voyage across the Atlantic. This was a period when Europeans, Ottomans, and other powers were still trying to understand what the Atlantic discoveries meant. The Americas were not yet fully mapped, and many people still tried to fit new coastlines into older ideas about Asia, islands, and legendary lands. In 1517, after the Ottoman conquest of Egypt, Piri Reis presented the map to Sultan Selim I. We do not know whether the Sultan used it, studied it, stored it, or ignored it. After that presentation, the map essentially disappeared from the historical record until its rediscovery in the 20th century. That long silence adds to its mystery, because the object survived, but the story of how it was used did not. The Piri Reis map is not a modern map in the sense most viewers expect. It does not use the familiar grid of latitude and longitude. Instead, it is a portolan chart, a type of navigational map built around compass roses and networks of radiating lines. These lines helped sailors estimate direction across the sea. Portolan charts were practical tools, designed for navigation, especially along coastlines and trade routes. They were not primarily meant to display the entire globe with mathematical precision. This matters because many later misunderstandings of the Piri Reis map come from judging it as if it were a modern projection. It was something different, a working maritime synthesis of information, rumor, direct observation, copied sources, and inherited geographic ideas. Its purpose was not to solve geography for all time, but to organize navigational knowledge available to Piri Reis. One of the map's most important features is its written commentary. The surviving fragment includes extensive notes, mostly in Ottoman Turkish. These notes help explain how Piri Reis understood his sources and what he thought certain places represented. They also show that the map was not a single eyewitness record. It was a compilation. Piri Reis gathered information from multiple maps, including Islamic and non-Islamic sources. That made the chart unusual in the Islamic cartographic tradition, because it openly incorporated knowledge from outside the Muslim world. In practical terms, this was exactly what a serious navigator would do. At sea, useful information mattered more than cultural purity. If a Portuguese, Spanish, Arab, or older chart contained helpful coastline data, it could become part of a new map. The Piri Reis map is therefore not just a picture of geography. It is evidence of information moving across empires. The most famous source behind the map is Christopher Columbus. The surviving Piri Reis fragment appears to include a partial copy of a lost Columbus map. That is historically valuable because no original map drawn by Columbus himself survives in the same way. Columbus believed he had reached Asia, not an unknown continent. This mistake shaped how he described islands and coastlines. On the Piri Reis map, the northwestern region combines features that modern viewers would separate into Central America and Cuba. Scholars believe this strange arrangement reflects Columbus's own mistaken geography, especially his claim that Cuba was connected to the Asian mainland. Hispaniola also seems to be filtered through older descriptions of Japan from Marco Polo. So the map preserves not only geographic knowledge, but geographic confusion. It shows the New World being interpreted through the mental map of the Old World. The depiction of South America is one of the reasons the Piri Reis map became famous. For a chart compiled in 1513, its representation of parts of the South American coast is detailed and impressive. It suggests that information from recent Atlantic voyages had already traveled widely enough to reach Ottoman cartographic circles. But impressive does not mean impossible or supernatural. Early explorers and mapmakers often copied coastlines from one another, corrected them, combined them, and sometimes distorted them. The Piri Reis map reflects that process. It captures a world in which knowledge was expanding quickly but unevenly. Some coastlines were surprisingly accurate, while nearby regions remained speculative or confused. That mixture is exactly what historians expect from early 16th century cartography. The map is remarkable because it reveals how fast information moved, not because it proves impossible knowledge. The Caribbean section is especially revealing because it shows how wrong ideas could be preserved alongside good data. Modern viewers might expect a map either to be accurate or inaccurate, but historical maps are rarely that simple. The Piri Reis map appears to merge islands, coastlines, and inherited assumptions into a single arrangement. Cuba, Central America, Hispaniola, and imagined Asian connections are entangled. This does not make the map worthless. In fact, it makes it more useful to historians, because it shows how people processed discovery before the geography was settled. Columbus's belief that he had reached Asia did not vanish immediately. It shaped maps, reports, political claims, and navigation. The Piri Reis map is therefore a snapshot of a transitional moment. The Atlantic world was being discovered, but it was still being forced into older categories. The map also stands out visually. Compared with many European portolan charts, the Piri Reis map carries influence from the Islamic miniature tradition. It includes decorative elements, vivid imagery, and legendary creatures at the margins of the known world. Historian Karen Pinto has noted that the positive portrayal of creatures in the Americas marked a departure from older medieval Islamic ideas of an impassable encircling ocean surrounding the known lands. Instead of presenting the edge of the world only as terrifying or unreachable, the map gives the newly encountered Atlantic spaces a kind of imaginative richness. This is important because maps do not only record measurement. They also express worldview. The Piri Reis map presents geography, navigation, empire, curiosity, and myth all at once. It belongs both to the history of science and the history of imagination. One of the biggest debates around the Piri Reis map concerns its sources. Piri Reis himself indicated that he used multiple maps, but scholars still debate exactly how many and what kinds. Some may have been Portuguese charts, some Spanish, some older Islamic materials, and one apparently linked to Columbus. This layered origin explains why the map contains both strong coastlines and puzzling regions. A compiler working from many sources had to decide which details to trust, how to align them, and how to fill gaps. Without modern surveying, satellite imagery, or standardized projections, mismatches were inevitable. The map's strange combinations are not signs that it came from a lost supercivilization. They are signs of a cartographer trying to reconcile imperfect documents from a rapidly changing world. Its value lies in the very messiness of that process. The most controversial claim about the Piri Reis map is that it shows Antarctica before Antarctica was officially discovered, sometimes even described as an ice-free Antarctic coast. This idea became popular in the 20th century, but it has been rejected by serious scholarship. The southern landmass on the map is more likely connected to the old concept of Terra Australis, a hypothetical southern land that many mapmakers believed must exist to balance the continents of the north. There is no solid textual or historical evidence that the map represents land south of present-day Canania in Brazil. The Antarctic theory survives because it is dramatic and visually tempting. But historical context points in a different direction. The southern shape is better understood as a mix of speculation, inherited geography, and distorted Atlantic coastline information, not proof of unknown polar mapping. What makes the Piri Reis map so fascinating is that it sits between fact and misunderstanding. It is not a fantasy map, because it contains real and valuable geographic information. But it is not a perfectly accurate scientific map either. It preserves Columbus's mistaken belief about Asia. It reflects early knowledge of South America. It uses navigational structures from Portolan chartmaking. It includes Ottoman Turkish notes, Islamic artistic influence, non-Muslim source material, mythical imagery, and speculative southern geography. In one damaged fragment, we can see how the world was being reassembled after the Atlantic crossings. The map's power comes from this tension. It shows discovery not as a clean moment when truth replaces ignorance, but as a messy process where old beliefs and new evidence overlap for decades. The Piri Reis map remains important because it is a rare survival from an age of rapid global change. It reminds us that maps are never neutral containers of facts. They are arguments about the world, built from sources, assumptions, politics, trade, memory, and imagination. The rediscovered fragment in Topkapi Palace does not reveal a secret ancient civilization or a complete hidden history of Antarctica. Its real story is more grounded, and in many ways more interesting. It shows an Ottoman admiral using the best information he could gather, including European discoveries, to create a navigational world picture in 1513. It preserves traces of lost maps, including one linked to Columbus. It captures both the excitement and confusion of the early age of exploration. That is why, more than 500 years later, this damaged chart still matters. If you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.